Okay, I'm gonna do another bracket prediction for the tournament this year. It'll be wrong in some ways, like every bracket will be. To start, I'll say we're not gonna see a 16-1 this year, so that's why I'm taking Gonzaga along with Baylor, Arizona, and Kansas getting out of the first round like they're supposed to. The 8-9 game with Boise, Memphis. Memphis. Even though it's not women's basketball, I am taking UConn over New Mexico State. However, the 112 I am picking to beat a 5 this year will be UAB over Houston. Even though Vermont was talked about as a threat, I am going with Arkansas. Since we are not playing football, I am going with the winner of Rutgers and Notre Dame to upset Alabama. Going with Texas Tech. A small upset in Davidson over Michigan State, and, well, Duke is determined to not send Krzyzewski into retirement with a loss to Fullerton, so Duke. Then, as mentioned earlier, Baylor, Marquette over North Carolina, St. Mary's and UCLA winning like they're supposed to, Texas being determined to not get upset this year and stay in the tournament longer. I'm going with them over Virginia Tech. The Purdue players will be working for the Yale players someday, but Yale is not winning. Purdue is. San Francisco over Murray State and Kentucky over St. Peter's. As mentioned earlier, Arizona, TCU beating Seton Hall, and the one upset that I mentioned earlier, UAB. There was the talk on the selection show about Chattanooga being a threat, which I think will be enough to fire up Illinois, so I am going with Illinois, avoiding the upset. I know everyone thinks Michigan's coach is classless to shove the guys, but unfortunately, they are gonna beat Colorado State, and I will pick them in the next round over Tennessee. Ohio State over Loyola Chicago, and as expected, Villanova beating Delaware. And then Creighton in the 8-9 game, along with, as mentioned earlier, Kansas. Now there's 113 over a 4 I am going with, and that is, so you see, South Dakota State over Providence. But Iowa over Richmond, as I'm already picking another 12 over 5, as mentioned earlier. LSU is in kind of a mess with the distraction, so Iowa State taking Wisconsin, and then USC over Miami, and then one upset I am talking about is Jacksonville State is not a typical 15 seed, so as another upset, I am picking them to beat Auburn. Now we're on to the second round. Gonzaga beating Memphis. UConn knocking out Arkansas. The winner of Rutgers and Notre Dame being tired from playing 2 games, and their run ending with a loss to Texas Tech. Even though Davidson doesn't have Steph Curry, I am taking Duke. Or rather, especially because Davidson doesn't have Steph Curry, I'm taking Duke, and they're not going to send Krzyzewski out with a loss to a 10 seed either. Now, Baylor beating Marquette, and then as much as I'd like St. Mary's to beat UCLA, I'm having to go with UCLA, just more tradition and more talent. Then Texas beating Purdue, and then like to see San Francisco beat Kentucky, but they're not. Kentucky's winning. Now we have Arizona beating TCU, UAB Cinderella run continuing with the win over Illinois. And then Michigan beating Tennessee, as much as everyone hates the Michigan coach. Villanova beating Ohio State. And Kansas beating Creighton. South Dakota State, pretty good to make it out of the first round, but not past Iowa. Since Wisconsin isn't under distractions like LSU is, I'm going with them over Ohio State or Iowa State. Jacksonville State, good for a one-hit wonder upset, but not two. USC. Now we have the Sweet 16. Obviously, I'd go with UConn if it was women, but since it's not the women, going with Gonzaga. Duke not sending Krzyzewski out in the Sweet 16 will get past Texas Tech. We have our first 1 seed to get upset, and that'll be UCLA over Baylor. It's just too hard for Baylor to repeat. Kentucky over Texas. UAB Magic running out against Arizona. Villanova beating Michigan, hopefully without a scuffle like what happened with Michigan earlier. Kansas beating Iowa. And Wisconsin beating USC. Now we're on to the Elite Eight. Yeah, as much as Gonzaga would like to send Krzyzewski out with a championship, the Elite Eight is as far as they're going to send him or get him. So going with Gonzaga as your first Final Four team. Kentucky beating UCLA. Arizona as our third Final Four team, beating Villanova. And Wisconsin over Kansas, the second 1 seed to fall. Now our Final Four. We have Gonzaga beating Kentucky, and then Arizona beating Wisconsin for a Gonzaga versus Arizona championship game. Now, just like we had in football with Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, we have a coach, a former assistant working under the guy coaching against the coach he worked under with Tommy Lloyd and Mark Few. And just like Kirby Smart finally getting the better of Nick Saban this year, I'm going with Tommy Lloyd getting the better of his old boss, Mark Few. Okay, I know this will have some mistakes. I know every bracket will have some mistakes, but we will see how it goes.